When we think about real estate in Dubai, we tend to think about these glamorous developments, mega projects, huge amounts of capital flowing into the industry. We're seeing this trend where fintech, AI, and PropTech are coming up. PropTech and fintech to a certainly larger extent.
Because of the real estate market here, there is a lot of focus on PropTech. So I think PropTech was the third most funded industry. Renting is a huge part of the economy. 70% of the population rents. It was 126 billion dirhams in rental payments in 2025 alone. The foundations of those transactions are still paper checks, upfront lump sums, and handshakes.
Speaking of becoming investable, you mentioned, that PropTech is going to grow in the next 1 to 2 years.
Now in Dubai, we have a genuinely rare position in the world. We have regulatory ambition, transaction velocity, we have political will to become the world's most tech-savvy real estate economy. And it's aligned to the vision of D33. The really, really good thing, interesting thing about Dubai is I don't think I could ever have done this in Australia or Malaysia, is literally walk into an office and speak with decision makers in these government organizations. When they talk about an open door policy, it literally is an open door policy.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome to the Live, Work and Play in Dubai podcast for Economic Times. My name is Amandeep, and I'm excited to be taking you through the journey that is shaping Dubai's economic future. From innovation and finance to sustainability and culture, it is all happening right here in Dubai. And today's episode is especially exciting because our guest for today sits at the intersection of all of the industries that are critical to Dubai's agenda. We've got finance, technology, real estate, digital banking, and more. So it is my absolute pleasure to have you here today, Rakesh, the CEO of Takeem, a PropTech platform.
Thank you very much.
How are you today?
I'm excellent. Yeah, it's been a great start to the morning.
Well, mornings in Dubai do tend to have a very, very good start, very dynamic start, loads of people, loads of cars on the road. Just another sign that there's a lot going on in the city.
There's definitely a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that brings us all to Dubai is that amount of energy.
And I have seen that energy, of course, when I've done a little bit of sleuthing to understand your career a little bit, I've seen that energy has been present across various industries, various backgrounds. So tell us about how exactly your career has come to, position itself across these very important industries. Is that intentional? Are you looking to be a part of Dubai's growth story? What does that look like?
So I'm the CEO, co-founder of Takeem, and our whole vision is to take the anxiety out of renting and owning. We want to be the trust layer for housing, that infrastructure that allows strangers to trust each other as we're going forward. So everything that I've done prior to this has kind of led us up to this moment. My career has been a long exercise in customer satisfaction, recognizing risk and opportunity before the market does, and most importantly, resilience. I started my career in finance as a stockbroker. I won't say my age, but it was back in the day when there was physical trading floors. So you had the chaos, you had the shouting, the screaming, the fist fights. We then moved to a computerized system, so the chaos was a little bit less, the shouting was a little bit less, there were still a few fistfights, but that taught me how to read people in psychology, especially in financial terms. It allowed me to be able to exit the market and my clients to exit the market before the first .com crash, which they still thank me for to this day. That also then gave me the opportunity to come to Dubai, where I worked in hospitality and entertainment. Now, that industry taught me customer service is paramount. It also taught me what it takes to build a brand and be considered in the top in the world. It also taught me resilience because of the amount of rejection in that industry is more than you'll get in any other industry, startups or anything else. The rejection in that industry is huge. At the same time, I was also still institutional broking for some very big banks, sitting between them to create that anonymity between banks. The lesson there was very important, and that is if you don't manage risk, you're not going to survive. But what that position also told me was that job wasn't going to be around forever. It was very easy that automation could take that job. And so I started looking at ways to be that automation. I saw that automation, robotics, and AI are soon going to have a serious effect on the way people work and live. So we needed a solution to that. So I decided to change the narrative around that and create a digital bank that would get ahead of those risks coming to market. And I built that in the US. So had to deal with regulators such as the FDIC. And that was a fantastic experience. But all of those things taught me that the most important aspect is of any relationship or interaction is trust. And that's what's all converged in building Takeem to this day.
That sounds like, multiple experiences. As they say, we are the sum of our experiences. So it does sound like all of that has led to ultimately what Takeem is. Do you feel like there's any one moment in your career that was an inflection point that made you decide, hang on, this is what's going to be it? Or did you have multiple of those throughout your career?
I think I've had multiple of them throughout the career to various degrees of success and failure. But each one has taught me a valuable lesson, and I've been able to take that lesson going forward and then build it into what we're building today.
And, given that Takeem sits at this intersection of real estate and technology and finance, it seems like it's got a good market in Dubai to be really successful and to solve the problems that people face here. So your tagline with Takeem says, frustrated tenant meets frustrated landlord. But when we think about real estate in Dubai, we tend to think about these glamorous developments, mega projects, huge amounts of capital flowing into the industry, and all of that is true. But there's also a massive rental ecosystem underneath all of that. So what does this frustration look like structurally?
So I don't think it's a very unique story when I say that founders, when they start companies, it's usually from a personal pain point.
Yeah.
And that was exactly the same story that we had, except with one unique element. I was a tenant, so I faced the frustration of being ghosted by a landlord for my security deposit.
Oh
my co-founder was a landlord, and she was having checks bounce. When we came together, we didn't see ourselves as adversaries. We just saw the frustration from different sides of the coin. And rather than complain about it, we decided to fix it. So I think that's the uniqueness that we have, is that we're coming from both sides of the equation to actually solve the problem. Now, as you said, renting is a huge part of the economy. 70% of the population rents. And I saw a figure yesterday that it was 126 billion dirhams in rental payments in 2025 alone. So we're talking massive scale right there. But the foundations of those transactions are still paper checks, upfront lump sums, and handshakes based on hope. So landlords are carrying the default risk with zero protection. Tenants are facing those large upfront payments of 6 to 1 year payments upfront, and agents are getting stuck in disputes that really shouldn't have escalated to the part that they are. So with Takeem, we've systemized the trust in the whole cycle, the whole life cycle of renting. We guarantee payments to landlords if the tenant doesn't pay. That then allows flexible payments for tenants to be able to have affordability. And we've seen that with our real-time transaction data and on defaults, we can provide transparency and comfort and security to the market. In the last year, we've onboarded over 55,000 units to our platform, which equates to about 5 billion dirhams of annual rent that Takeem can process and protect.
Wow. So it sounds like, you're trying to fix the issue related to transparency and the paper check issue, for example. Having to pay these lump sum amounts, of course, is not ideal. But at the core of it, what do you think is driving this sort of inefficiency in the rental market? Is it mostly a behavioral dynamic, or is it just that lack of transparency that existed prior to Takeem?
It's trust. Okay. Every landlord, every tenant, every property investor knows that they've experienced the mistrust, the friction, and the anxiety within the rental space. So if we can solve those issues, then we're solving a real pain point for real people.
And given that, this is the solution that you have on offer and so many units have been onboarded, do you see a change happening in the rental ecosystem, in the sort of mindset of renters and landlords, or is that something that you think is going to be like a slow process?
I don't think it'll be a slow process because of how the whole tech environment is working. So I think there'll be some catalysts that will speed up the process quite a lot. We've already seen some massive tech innovations from the Dubai Land Department, plus private companies as well. So I think the catalyst is there. It's just that when you look at something at a present moment, you may not see what's changed from where we came from. But it's actually a large movement. And I think it's just going to get larger over the next 1 to 2 years.
For renters moving into Dubai now, what is the best way to get that awareness around platforms like Takeem?
I guess a little bit of it falls on us to create the education and awareness. That's what we do as startups. That's what any company does. It's also about educating yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that I love is researching. I don't know if anyone else has that passion, but I love to research literally anything.
Research is my background, so I completely share that.
Right? I find it a little bit too obsessive when I come to research on things, even the most simple of things. But that's just what we do. And we live in a review society anyway. So you can go out there and you can very easily find those sources available to you to be able to find products like Takeem that make it more efficient and more transparent.
Okay, and do you feel like there's any resistance in the market at the moment to be involved in platforms like Takeem?
I think with any time there's something new, there's a little bit of resistance because it's not the way that it's always been done.
Yeah.
But when you can show the benefits and how with Takeem, renting isn't a zero-sum game. We see it as a win-win-win across the board for all players in the ecosystem and all stakeholders. So once you get that message across, then it actually becomes a really easy sell because we knew the demand was already there and we built the solution within the demand.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the funding ecosystem in the UAE because, of course, for any founders, entrepreneurs listening to this, they would love to know how they can actually access investable capital because when we look at the UAE landscape, Dubai landscape, we know that there's a lot of capital. The capital exists through sovereign wealth funds, through state-backed funds. We've got VCs, we've got family offices, alternative investments. Within VCs as well, we're seeing this trend where fintech, AI, and PropTech are coming up. PropTech and fintech to a certainly larger extent. AI less so because I guess we just don't understand the product and so we don't invest in it. And Takeem as well recently secured funding through Reach Middle East. So tell us about what that journey was like. Were you able to differentiate your pitch in a unique way? Were you able to access that sort of route in an easy way, smooth way? What did that look like?
So I would first like to say that getting an investment from an international investor like Reach, which is backed by Second Century Ventures, was huge validation for us. Not only are they an international investor investing in the UAE, they're also the most prolific and largest PropTech investor in the world.
Yeah.
So that was huge for us. Fundraising in this market is an exercise of patience and being able to read patterns. And that's something that I think that when we spoke about my career journey is something that I've developed. You mentioned PropTech in particular. Because of the real estate market here, there is a lot of focus on PropTech.
Yeah.
So I think PropTech was the third most funded industry amongst all the funding last year. Now, the question I usually get is it a big market? Which is usually the question you would get overseas because people understand how big the market is. It's more around what's your defensibility and what's your moat. And we were very calculated on how we went about our raise. And that was, we wanted to be able to back up any raise with traction metrics and data to be able to show. And that's what moved the needle for us. It wasn't the vision, it was the execution. And we were then able to go and raise money based on a valuation that we could determine rather than that being determined for us because we had the numbers to back it up. And I think that is a very clear lesson for a lot of people raising in this market. It's not about vision. It's about execution and being able to back up your premise with data and with numbers that you have proven yourself.
So facts really do speak for themselves then.
Yeah, they do. Very much so. Yeah. Very much so. And we're seeing the investors become a lot more engaged. We're seeing international investors, a lot of Indian investors have come into the market, not just as homeowners in Dubai, because that is actually the largest population of homeowners in Dubai, Indian diaspora. It's coming in as investors into startups. And they're very savvy, they're very data orientated, and they're very transparency orientated, which is right in line of the ethos of Takeem.
So you mentioned patient capital.
Yes.
And I have two questions for you related to patient capital. The first is, do you think there's enough patient capital in the Dubai ecosystem? And the second, how do you build patience in a market that is known for how transient it is with people going in and out all the time, capital going in and out as well? So
I think,
thoughts?
Yeah, I have a great thought about that. And I think it all stems from the top of Dubai.
Yeah.
His Highness's vision of Dubai was never a short-term vision. It was a long-term vision.
Yeah.
And I think that's filtered down to a lot of the culture is that when we talk about investment, the real serious investment sees the long-term play.
Yeah.
They're not looking at it as a short-term play. They see the long-term play.
Okay.
And that then transcends to any type of investment, whether it's a retail store, whether it's property, or whether it's into startups.
Okay. You also mentioned Indian investment coming through from the diaspora that is involved in the home ownership over here. I would also like to hear more about what that looks like from an institutional perspective, because we've got so many family offices coming out of India into the UAE, into the DIFC ecosystem, for example. We've got a lot of targeted investment coming from Gift City, based in India as well. So what does that Indian institutional investment into startups look like at the moment?
I think it's very savvy. They're very educated investors, and they know what they're looking for. In the real estate space of PropTech, they understand real estate and they understand the efficiencies and the benefits of having a technology solution. But I think that they're looking at the market again as a risk-reward solution, and they're very conscious of that. So I would say they're not as risk-friendly as maybe some other nationality investors. They're a little bit more risk-averse. But again, when you come with the numbers, you come with the data, you come with the traction, that will ease their concern. So they are definitely coming into the market in a big way, especially the family offices out of DIFC, as you mentioned, and they are actively involved in the market.
I think it also might be a cultural thing, because when you say that, Indian investors are not very risk-friendly, I can think of my own family, for example. Generally, we tend to take a very we try to play it safe, for example. And I think, with the diaspora as well, when you've got a culture of immigration, of being expats, maybe that's a cultural thing. But it's interesting how that's.
So I have a little bit of the Indian background, hence the name Rakesh.
Yeah.
But my family was from Malaysia. Now, they have a very similar mindset where it literally is the first investment you buy is an apartment.
Real estate, yeah.
Is an apartment. And hence why there is so many apartments in Southeast Asia. It's just part of the culture, what you've always grown up with. Whereas when we look at American investors, the risk profile is much higher. They're much more willing to take the chance. They're much more willing to take a risk. They will take a vision and they will invest in a vision.
Yeah.
And I think you have to know that idiosyncrasy of this market, that yes, we see what's happening on Twitter, we see what's happening on X with the American VCs investing into simply an idea and getting large funding for it. That's not so much the case in this region. And you have to be prepared for that. You have to put in the work and put in the grit to be able to get to a point where you are investable.
Speaking of becoming investable, you mentioned, that PropTech is going to grow in the next 1 to 2 years, not even in the longer term. So the integration of technology into something like real estate and into the finance of it, what do you see as some developments coming up in the next 1 to 2 years, given that, the pace of growth of AI is just so through the roof? I feel like that's going to permeate into other sectors of technology as well. So 1 to 2 years, kind of short term.
Not just technology. Yeah. It's literally going to impale itself on every single part of life. Everyone's been affected by the internet.
Yeah.
Absolutely everyone's going to be affected by what happens with AI. Now, in Dubai, we have a genuinely rare position in the world. We have regulatory ambition, transaction velocity. We have political will to become the world's most tech-savvy real estate economy. And it's aligned to the vision of D33. So they have a philosophy here. His Highness says, this is what we're going to build, and then they build it.
Yeah.
Right? It literally is, this is the vision, they execute. And it's not that... There's no qualms about it. It just gets done.
Yeah. It's like step 1, think. Step 2, do.
Do, exactly, right? And step 1 and step 2 follow pretty closely, is what I've noticed. So, but there are still gaps in the market. And I like to say whenever there's a gap, doesn't matter if the market's going up, it doesn't matter if the market's going down, there's always opportunity if you can see the gap in the market. For us, it was that the rental data is still fragmented. You can find sales data really easily, but for the rental layer, the defaults, the risk layer, that wasn't so available. And that's what we built. We built the most comprehensive data set on those features. So the next frontier, I think, is when rental infrastructure meets financial infrastructure. Because when you have that financial services layer sitting on top of the rental market, then insurance, credit scoring, long-term financial planning, anything like that. And when you make renting as legible as home owning, then you build a real sustainable and real stable market, I think.
Yeah.
There was another word I was looking for there, but I can't remember. It's going to accelerate growth so much on the rental space, and even Dubai alone still, as I said before, has 70% of the population is renting.
Yeah.
It's such a large percentage of the population where if we can solve those problems, then it's going to filter through to everything else in the economy.
Yeah. Yeah, 70% as a figure. It just points to the scale of scale being so large. Now, you mentioned that, you know, the next frontier would be finance coming together with the real estate aspect of it. And Takeem has that to a certain extent. You do work with several providers in these spaces, and that also entails you having to work with a lot of regulation. So it could be the Dubai Land Department, it could also be finance. So walk us through that journey of navigating this regulatory landscape.
So we had a very clear strategy. We didn't want to build just a shinier version of another app. We wanted to actually build the infrastructure layer, the pipes that everything runs on, because that's what we think will be the most growth, and that's what will be the long-standing feature of Takeem. When I first came up with the idea and the concept, I looked at the regulatory space, and to me it looked like 3D chess, maybe even 6D chess. We knew we'd have to deal with certain regulators. We knew we'd have to bring on specific partners to be able to bring our vision to life. So whether that was the UAE Central Bank, whether it was Dubai Land Department, we knew we had to fit in with all those regulators. Now, they each have their own mandate. They each have their own vision of what they see Dubai. But what they all have aligned together is intent. And that is a stable, trustworthy and transparent market. And once you realize that, that's when the conversation really starts. And that's when they start respecting what you're building. Because if you can go to them and say, we are all about making the market more stable for the benefit of your mandate, then they will start to take you more seriously and doors open. We were incredibly fortunate that in 2024, there was a competition started called the Create Apps in Dubai. And it was under the patronage of His Highness, the Crown Prince Sheikh Hamdan. We were one of the winners of that competition.
Oh, wow.
And since that day, we've had the support of not only His Highness's office, but also the Dubai Chamber of Digital Economy. The doors that have been opened to us from those experiences, and I recommend everyone, whether it's Create Apps in Dubai or it's any of these other incentives that the Dubai government is putting on, that they should go forward, and because they open the doors to the regulators. And my advice to anyone coming into this market is create that relationship with regulators before you need it.
Yeah.
Because it's no point trying to get that relationship when the crisis happens. You need to be able to have that relationship already there. You should frame every conversation around market stability, because that's then you buying into their mandate and you then helping them achieve their goals.
Yeah.
The last thing would be is to find people who have gone through the process before you.
Yeah.
They will have some amazing wisdom and some knowledge on how to go through the steps to be able to get your execution of your product.
Yeah. So it sounds like if you're here with the intention of becoming a part of Dubai's growth story, of progressing Dubai's economic agenda, then there's no real reason to not be provided with the support that you need.
The support is there. What we see from a lot of people coming into the market is that regulation's always been seen as an obstacle. Here, I think it's actually a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
In the fact that if you can get the regulators on side, you can show them your vision and they buy into it, then the amount of doors that are opened, the amount of support that you get, it's not an obstacle.
Yeah.
It's actually a moat for your startup.
Yeah. Dubai also, you know, in terms of the support system that you've just mentioned, that one competition was one aspect of it. Have you been using any of the sandboxing opportunities at all?
Yeah, so we were founding members of both the REIS initiative with Dubai Land Department and also the PropTech DXB through Dubai Chamber. We also have had conversations with Dubai Sandbox with regard to how we see the rental market and the future of the rental market. All these doors are open to everyone. And the really, really good thing, interesting thing about Dubai is, and I don't think I could ever have done this in Australia or Malaysia, is literally walk into an office and speak with decision makers in these government organizations.
Yeah.
That's something that Dubai has that I've never seen any other government or public service have, is that when they talk about an open door policy, it literally is an open door policy.
Yeah.
You can go into Dubai Land Department and you can walk around Dubai Land Department and you can speak to people there who are the decision makers.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people know about this. I think to this day, you know, when people think about moving anywhere, really, they think about, oh, I'm going to have to speak to so many people. I'm going to have to do so much research. There's going to be so many obstacles in the way. And of course, that is true. It's not always going to be just an extremely smooth ride. But if you had to give top 3 tips, you know, aside from the regulation conversation that we've had and having these relationships with people who've had the experience before, top 3 tips for people who are looking to make the move into Dubai, not just from a professional perspective, but also from a personal perspective, how to make the most out of their life in Dubai. What would that be?
I've lived here for 27 years, so I've had a long time.
Yeah.
I have the scars and I have the success.
Yeah.
I would say the number 1 tip that I have is that you understand the culture before you try and change it.
Yeah.
Dubai is not a blank canvas where you can bring what you were doing in another country and expect it to work here. The relationship economy here is real. The trust is built over face-to-face, over time, over coffees, over iftars and suhoors. You can't just expect to parachute in and do a sprint.
Yeah.
Dubai is going to be a marathon. And you have to spend time and build those relationships. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing is embrace the culture. If you have a business, be incredibly customer focused, because the customers will tell you well before anything else on what your product needs or what's the market demanding of you.
Yeah.
And again, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You've got to play the long game in Dubai. I was the cliche Dubai story. Came out here on a 3-month contract. 27 years later, I'm still here playing the long game. And that's the vision that I had. I mean, the vision has changed a few times in that journey.
Yeah.
But it's always been that Dubai is a place of opportunity and ambition.
Yeah.
If you can literally see an opportunity here and build it. It's that simple. And that's the way that the whole infrastructure, the policy, everything's been designed, is to allow people that are willing to work, people who will put in the grit and do the hard work, can really see it pay off here in Dubai.
Yeah. I get what you mean about the cliche story. I moved here when I was 4.
Okay.
and I was told to, don't get too attached to Dubai. We could leave at any time. And look at me now.
Yeah, it's a very different mindset. So when I first got here, that cliche was that how transient it was. It was usually around 2 years.
Yeah.
And for the first few years, it was like that. Lost a lot of friends along the way.
Yeah.
But now I find it's become more of a home.
Yeah.
Dubai is home for me.
Yeah.
Dubai is my home.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of other people see that. We're seeing more and more people who move here with their families with a longer term viewpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it doesn't mean that the transient nature has completely changed. I still lose friends, you know, at this age as well, and I have to go out and make new friends, which is tiresome.
This age, you don't want to do that.
It is tiresome having to go out and make new friends and network with people. But the beauty is that even though good people leave the country, good people also come in.
That's correct.
And so, you know, you are still able to make those relationships. You are still able to have that sort of fulfilling life.
I think to go back to the Indian diaspora over here, they're the ones who have literally made it generations of living in Dubai.
Yeah.
They're so ingrained in the community. So anyone coming here, let's say from India, you should tap those networks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because those families have literally been here for 3, maybe 4 generations now. They are so ingrained in the economy, the market, the whole culture. They've established the relationships. If you can provide value to them, then they will open those doors to those relationships for you.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we've had some very, very helpful insights into what the real estate market looks like, into what technology looks like, how to have these, open door conversations. I would now love to hear from you. If there were absolutely 0 obstacles in the world, 5 years from now, where would you like to see the real estate technology finance integration? What would be your sort of gold star of what that scenario looks like?
The gold star is we started this mission because, and every successful startup, I think, is solving a real world problem for real people, that we've solved that problem. that the anxiety, the mistrust, the friction in the whole process is no longer there. It's a process that takes 5 minutes. We've been conditioned now by the likes of Uber, Amazon, Deliveroo to expect things to be done in seconds.
Yeah.
That's what we want to see in the real estate market. It's that speed, that transparency, that stableness, that trust, everything that government is trying to do. We want to be able to help them build that.
Yeah.
And in 5 years' time, I think we will be well into that journey. And I think a lot of that anxiety that a lot of us experience today will no longer be there.
That sounds like such a positive, future trajectory to be thinking of. I'm so excited about living in a city that has that level of efficiency, and I think we're doing that. The way that the government initiatives are coming up, the way that even private players are coming in. Innovators like yourself, working in a way that adds on to Dubai's drive to achieve that future. So I'm pretty confident that is going to be what we achieve.
I think if you look back at the results that His Highness has achieved on his visions, if you look back at that track record, I think it's a pretty good sign that things are going to go as he has planned.
Yeah, definitely. Great. Thank you so much, Rakesh, for all of those insights. It has been a very, very enjoyable conversation, and I hope the listeners have also gained insights from it. Everything related to real estate, technology, banking even. You also have a background in marketing, which we didn't touch, but I'm sure that it's just part of that very intense tapestry of a career that you've had.
I think everyone has a career in marketing, whether it be a title or not a title. Yeah. In startups, we say that you should always be raising. Now, it's usually around funds, but I like to expand the term. You're always raising exposure, you're always raising sales, or you're always raising funds. And you're always selling yourself, whether it be from a direct marketing channel or just having conversations like this yourself or just conversations with people on the street at the end of the day.
Exactly, yeah. Well, lots to remember. So thank you so much, Rakesh, for that. And thank you to our audience for tuning in, and stay tuned for more on business and innovation in Dubai.